Hi, and welcome to the Meditation Conversation. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin, and I'm so happy to have with me today Cathy Boone-Black. Cathy is a hypnotist, doula, reflexologist, and a practitioner of many other specialties. It's safe to say she's well-versed in the usage of energy to bring about healing and balance. And I was really intrigued by Cathy's specialty in using hypnosis to prep patients for surgery. I didn't even know that this was a thing. So we'll explore this today, along with other ways in which she uses consciousness to affect healing. She's got some really interesting stories and experiences that I'm excited to get into. So welcome, Cathy.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast today.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're here. So let's talk about how you even found your way into this work, because if I remember correctly, you were drawn to this because of your own personal success with using hypnosis for surgery. So let's start there. Can you share that with us?
Sure, I will back up if you don't
Oh,
mind.
please.
And I'm going to start out because a lot of people are very intrigued about how I came to be a hypnotist in the first place. And so I always like to share my story and my journey. I started out when I was 6 years old having my first panic attack ever. And throughout my life, into my 20s, my life was pretty much plagued with panic and anxiety, agoraphobia, um, throughout my life. And so when I was growing up, they really didn't know panic and anxiety. They just deemed me a nervous kid when they could not find anything medically, physically wrong with me. And so back when I was a child, therapy just wasn't readily available. People didn't really go to therapy. So after I graduated high school, I decided I was going to find help. I had to find out what was wrong with me because I felt like I had missed so much of my life because of fear and avoidance, just never knowing when those panic attacks were going to strike. So I was introduced to a psychiatrist at the IU Med Center, Dr. Hannes Gross, and Dr. Gross introduced me to hypnosis. He taught me self-hypnosis and worked with me for a few years, and I had never felt so relaxed in my life. I'd never heard of hypnosis. I didn't know what it was. But after my first session with him, I was hooked. And it was like, this is really cool. So it was the first dot that was connected for my healing journey. And then I got connected with a group, a self-help group, that was, it was kind of like an AA meeting where they met once a week. And it was a self-help group for people with mental illness. And it was teaching us that our thoughts were creating the feelings inside and how to think a better thought, how to
How to
work,
catch
how to
it.
catch it, and how to look at things in a different way. Great. It was another dot connected on my journey. So from there, I just really started studying the brain and the body and emotions and energy and how all of it works together. And I got better because I finally understood what was happening to me. I understood that even though it felt like it came out of the blue, those panic attacks, it felt like I didn't have any control. I really did. And I had to be taught that and understand that. And I got better. And so I always had a heart of helping people feel better because I knew what it felt like to be feel so helpless and so hopeless.
Yeah.
And so I got in, I've always been very open with my story because I believe people need my story. And I believe that God brought me through to help other people.
Mm,
And
that's beautiful.
yeah, and so coming up on that, it was back in 1988. I was getting ready to have the second surgery of my life. And I was working, my first, Dr. Gross had retired by then. So I had found another therapist that was working with me with hypnosis. And I was really kind of freaking out because the first surgery I ever had a few years before that just did not go well. I just didn't feel very well for months, and I knew this surgery needed to be done. And so my therapist said, oh, I'll make it a tape recording. Back then it was an audio tape. You'll
Mhm.
listen to it for a week before you go to surgery. You'll be fine. It'll be totally different. And I did. We did it. And it was totally different.
In
I
what way?
I remember coming out of that anesthesia so easy
Mm.
and so effortless. My doctor said back then, oh, I can't believe how little you bled through that surgery. Or he said, I can't believe how fast you came out of that anesthesia. And then I really had no discomfort. I healed really quickly. And again, when I'd go back for my checkups, he was like, wow, you've really healed very quickly. And so I was really hooked then. So every surgery or procedure that I've had since then, she would make a recording and I would listen to it. And then when back in 2009, when I started my business, there was a lady that was out of Boston that was certifying her people for her program called Prepare for Surgery, Heal Faster. And even though I had had a lot of hypnosis from my therapist and I kind of knew what to do, and now I'm a certified therapist, I decided to go ahead and be certified through Peggy Huddleston, because she had a lot of the forward thinkers that were touting her program. Um, Dr. Andrew Weil, Dr. Oz. She traveled with Christiane Northrup for many years, and that's how she got her start. And so I was certified in her program, and I've been using, hypnosis for surgery for my clients ever since. And it's just amazing the results that my clients have had.
Mm. That's that's amazing. You mean you mentioned some of the benefits that you've experienced. So um, the healing was faster,
Mm-hmm.
and the bleeding, even the bleeding during surgery
Mm-hmm.
was lessened noticeably,
Yes.
and that you came out of the anesthesia so fast, which
Yes.
I find remarkable, because you're doing this as prep work. You're doing it for about a week before you go into surgery. And then, do I remember correctly that you actually did you listen to it while you were under as well?
No.
Okay.
What we do is we have healing statements that we give the doctor or the nurse in surgery. And usually it's a nurse that will say healing statements as you go under anesthesia and as you come out.
Okay.
Because when you're under anesthesia, you are very susceptible to suggestion.
Mm.
And even when I work with people, what I put in their recording is that the voice that you will, as you're under, you will only pay attention to the voice that speaks directly to you. All other
Mm.
voices will just fade away, because they could be in there talking about some other patient that didn't have a great outcome, or they could be talking about something where your subconscious mind thinks that they're talking about you. And, so we don't want your subconscious mind to take in the suggestions that are not about you at all.
Right.
And
Well, no,
when
go
you
ahead.
get back to the bleeding part of it, what Peggy was telling us is that, you can go into anesthesia, they can give you the anesthesia to put you out. But if you're not mentally relaxed, your body's still tense and tight.
Mhm.
And so when you're mentally relaxed, think about that. The muscles are more relaxed. Mentally you're relaxed, so your circulatory system is more relaxed, rather than like pumping against,
Yeah.
really pressure in the body mentally. And so, but every one of my surgeons would say that. It wasn't just one surgery, it was been
Right.
every surgery has been like that.
That's so interesting, because you're dealing with results that are happening at so many levels. So if you are nervous and scared about going
Yeah.
into surgery, if you have anxiety about surgery, and then you're able to feel calmness. I mean, that's dealing with the emotions and other things too, but the bleeding is physical. The coming out of, different states of consciousness, having a smoother transition back to waking consciousness, that's dealing with consciousness, levels. So it's really like multidimensional, multi-layered, really able to, I mean, that just shows the power of it. And I know, like, I don't have a ton of experience with surgery. I have had a few surgeries over time. But when I've had to have general anesthesia, I don't, it's been a long time now, but I don't remember feeling particularly nervous going in. I mean, it's like a special day and and everything's strange because you don't do it all the time, but I don't remember feeling like particularly stressed about it. And having said that, it was really hard for me to come out of it. Like every time I've had general anesthesia, I am sobbing as I come out of it. I am sobbing and I don't know why. I mean, I remember the first time that I remember doing this, I was like in my early 20s. So my mom was there as I came out, or maybe I was even in late teens or something. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. I mean, it's like, I couldn't remember anything and I couldn't remember why I was crying. But, and then, my son had a surgery when he was like not even 2 yet. And the same thing, he had clearly like no fear going into it or anything. He didn't really know what was going on, but him coming out of it, like he was a mess. I mean, he was like totally not himself and beside himself. So there's like this really like automatic thing that happens, I think, with a lot of people that's not necessarily even related to stress or to anxiety, or it's just like this thing that happens.
Yeah, and probably you were more stressed about it than you thought. A lot of times people will try to block that because it's like, well, I got to have this anyway, so I'm just going to keep going forward with. But in the back of your mind, maybe you might have been a little bit more fearful of it. We don't go out we don't go under general anesthesia every day, and people are generally a little bit, they don't like that. They don't, people either don't like to be out of control or they're afraid something's going to happen because we don't do it every day.
Yeah.
So perhaps just a thought that you might have been a little more anxious and you were blocking that just because you knew you had to do the surgery. And then when it was over, it was almost like a relief. Woo! And then you're like, or that could have just been the effects of the anesthesia on you,
Yeah.
So, but, and plus getting back to the stress part of it, this program helps people to feel more calm and relaxed about it mentally and physically. And that will help keep your immune system up. Because when you are stressed out, your immune system takes a nosedive. They did some research at a medical school over at the Ohio State University, I guess they call it. They took a group of med students in the beginning of school and they tested their T cells. Now, T cells are formed in the thymus gland, which is there in the chest, and it coordinates our immune system. So they had a baseline level of these students and their T cell count. And then they took the count again. They tested it during midterms when they're stressed out, they're not eating, they're not sleeping, they're really worried about their midterm tests, and their T cells had tanked. They had them listen to a 20-minute relaxation recording and tested their T cells again and found that they were right back up to where they were at the beginning of school.
Wow.
So the more that you can work on your stress level, the more your immune system stays up. And we definitely want your immune system strong when you're going into surgery so that you can heal better and quicker.
Yeah.
And so that's what I get with every one of my clients because I check with them after surgery, maybe a week after surgery. And I've never had one of them yet that said, no, I went in and I was freaked out. They were so calm and relaxed. From the time we did the recording, I like to do it 2 weeks before so that they can listen to it at least once a day, if not twice a day, And they just feel so calm and relaxed going into it.
Mm.
So it really helps out. The doctors love it because then they don't get a lot of last minute panicky phone calls or last minute cancellations because people just aren't going to do it.
Mm.
I know Peggy said that the doctors, she's in Boston, so a lot of the Harvard teaching hospitals use the program, NYU, Boston, the Kaiser Permanente, some of the doctors out in California, that system uses it. And the doctors loved it because they said they can tell the minute they walk in before surgery to talk to the patient who has had the program and who hasn't.
Oh.
They said the people that had taken the program were so calm and relaxed. And the hospitals, now this was years ago when you used to stay a few more days, but the hospital loved it because people were healing so well and doing so well that they didn't have to stay as many days. They could get out of the hospital sooner.
Mm.
And so, especially now, I think it's good because they send people home. Like I had a client this summer that had a knee surgery. She had a bedroom on the second floor and it was an outpatient knee replacement.
Oh my
And I'm
gosh.
like, okay, how's that work?
Right.
But they just don't keep people in the hospital anymore. So this
Yeah.
program is especially good for that because, it,
Makes the healing
it
rapid
makes the healing
post.
more rapid. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
So we did some work with her, visualizing her going up and down the stairs easily, her knee moving easily. There's just a lot about, using our brain to visualize
Right.
and really think about our healing and really
Right.
believe in our healing.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like the chronic stress and anxiety, like what you experienced growing up, I think you also specialize, am I remembering correctly that you specialize in helping people through chronic stress and anxiety as well?
Oh yes, I specialize in anxiety because of what I went through. And
Right.
and I really find that whether people come in here for panic attacks or issues at work or some kind of addiction or even eating disorders and smoking, it all really, when you boil it down, it all comes down to there's an emotion at the base of it. It's
Mhm.
all stress and anxiety. And so when
Yeah.
you can start working to work the stress and anxiety out of those emotional roots that cause you to want to smoke or eat or drink or whatever you're wanting to come in here to work on, there's always emotional root at the base that's around anxiety.
Okay. So I'm curious about with the hypnosis, when you're dealing with like stress or anxiety or any of the different uh, manifestations that you were talking about. My background is in meditation, of course. This
Mhm.
is meditation conversation. Um, and so meditation is really effective in dealing with calming and dealing with helping to alleviate stress. But it's most effective when it's like a newly integrated part of a lifestyle, or it's been integrated as a lifestyle change, rather than like I know that I have had people before who, students of mine, for example, who have been under the misunderstanding that, oh, you come to class and then it's gonna solve everything.
Right.
It's like an ongoing, like, oh, if you can like fold this into your life, you're going to reap such benefits and you're going to feel great right afterwards. And you may feel great for many hours afterwards. But in order to like really change, out of a life that is led by anxiety and trying to avoid anxiety, um, you really have to make it like a practice, a regular practice. So I'm curious with hypnotism, if it's something that you're able to sort of do more, like you can cauterize it kind of like, or if it's more indefinite, like, oh, you keep coming, you keep having that like homeostasis through the hypnotism, but like meditation, it you kind of have to keep at it, or is it?
Yes, I tell my clients, the work I do is very magical,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not a magic pill.
Mm.
And so I have to have a phone conversation. I do a free phone consultation with my clients um, beforehand, because I usually get phone calls or I'll get text messages or emails that people that want to come in. And I always have to have a phone conversation first, because I don't take everybody that calls me. I
Mm.
have to make sure that they understand the way I work and what I'm doing, and that they're on board to come and work with me.
Mm.
It's not like you can come in here and I can wave a magic wand and you walk out the door and you are healed. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work that way. You are going to feel a difference.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm going to work with you on is teaching you some resources and some strategies so that you can develop a habit of using these so that you can have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not all about me doing the work. They're only going to be with me a certain amount of times.
Mm-hmm.
I love teaching these mental tools that they can put in their toolbox so that they can go out and have these, because they know that they make a difference in their life and that they can work with them. I don't want people to feel like they are tied to me. They have to come in here to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to be able to know they can walk out my door after so many sessions and they got it. They've got this.
Yeah.
They can use these tools for the rest of their life. Some of the things that I learned in that cognitive behavior therapy group 40 years ago, I still use today, and I teach my grandchildren.
Mm.
Um, and it's like, those are mental tools that I have that make my life better, and that I can go on and teach my kids. And I don't need to be, in a therapist's office for the rest of my life. I can
Right.
use them and understand how it works, and to help myself.
Right. That empowerment is
Mhm.
so important for everybody. It's kind of um, just being able to have that control within you, and because we do all have it.
We do.
It is there for everybody. Sometimes we can have a tendency to feel like some people were given something that others weren't. Um, and so it's beautiful that you're helping people to uncover that for
Mhm.
themselves and to see that magic that is within them,
Yeah.
and so effectively.
Yeah, I think when people understand, well, not knowledge is power. Doesn't matter what kind of knowledge you're getting. Knowledge is power. And so when, I can help them and I can explain and help them understand how the brain works. Each and every one of us that are here, that have a thought, we have the power within us, but nobody teaches us that, really.
Yeah.
We grow up around those influential people in our lives that are in our realm. Parents, grandparents, teachers, friends, cousins, all those influential people in our life. We learn how to deal with life from watching those around us from the day we're born.
Mhm.
And if the people around us that we learn from don't have the best way of dealing with life, then that's the way we learn.
Yeah.
And so, not to beat anybody up, because those influential people in our life were doing the best they could with the knowledge they had from how they grew up, and their parents were doing the best they could from the knowledge they had of how they grew up. And it just goes back and back, generation after generation. And so we all have the power within us to feel better, to have a healthier body, a healthier mind, but we just don't. I certainly didn't learn how to
Yeah.
cope with stress and anxiety from when I was growing up. I had to learn that on my own.
Right.
So that's what I love to teach people and empower people.
Right.
You know.
Well, I love that you're saying that too, because I just had a class that I taught just a couple of hours ago. And afterwards I was talking with one of my students, and she was saying the very same thing. She's gone through this huge journey, but she's recognizing now with the people that she grew up with, her siblings and so forth, like she now sees, because she's had the benefit of all this work that she's done. Like she's done this massive amount of work on herself, and it's beautiful, this transformation she's going through and has gone through. But she can see like, oh, this is a total reflection of how I was raised. And then she's got the contrast of her sibling who hasn't been doing the same work. So her sibling's still blind to it, but it's like this big contrast in this, like, oh my gosh, it's so powerful, your generational inheritance of.
Absolutely. Yeah. And part of the work that I do, going back to those emotional roots, is I do a lot of inner child work. Because I just truly believe we all have those little kids that live inside of us that have been hurt, that have been a lot of people have been abused. We've been broken. And so to go back and heal that inner child, heal the trauma, heal the hurts and all of that, and let that make you be stronger as you come forward. I just totally believe that for me, I believe that what I went through, I healed through that. So I have a lot of scars where I healed, and I let those scars turn into stars where I can use my past to make me stronger and to be in here and to work with people, because I know it from the heart. I know it from my inside out, and I know what it feels like to be in that place of desperation and hopelessness. And I also know what it feels like to be in that place of empowerment, to know my brain so well that I know how my brain works and how I have the ability to change a thought, to develop a habit of looking at things in a different way so that I have peace in my inner environment.
That's beautiful. What a great way. I mean, it's very inspiring because everybody has trauma. All of us are carrying history with us. And so we can either, I love that, turning my scars into stars. It's a beautiful way to carry the trauma that we, and to use it for the highest good and to help others. That's beautiful.
Yeah, because you can look at it in two ways. I always tell my clients in here, I'm like, I could have been on drugs the rest of my life trying to numb out that pain. I could have been an alcoholic. I could have gone a whole different route, but there was something inside of me that said, you know what? I don't want to be on medicine the rest of my life. Now, I was on some medication for a couple times in my life for short periods of time, so that as I healed, but I knew I didn't want that to be a crutch the rest of my life. I wanted to find out why and to heal from the inside out, not just take the medicine to cover up what was going on. And so it's just like, so I let those scars lead me here, because I don't believe that I could ever really, I could be doing this if I just learned it through a book or through studying, but I couldn't be doing it knowing
from the heart,
from my heart, knowing what it's like. When somebody tells me they're having panic attacks, my mind, I remember. I know what that feels like. And so I just feel like that it's helped me be who I am today, and to be able to help people through this, and so that people can see that you don't because when you're going through this, you feel like you're dying or going crazy.
Mm.
And so people can see, you know, hey, she got through it.
You can get through it.
I can
Yeah.
get through it. There is help and there is hope.
Right. Right. And be, yeah, so that it doesn't seem like this condition is just indefinite or permanent, or, you know, because when you're in something that's so powerful and intense, like a panic attack or even just chronic anxiety,
Yes.
it can feel like, oh, this is what life is like from now on, you know, like
Right.
I'm just on all the time and I'm looking for danger and I don't know why, and I can't
Yeah.
feel soothed and I can't feel calm and there's no peace. And this is just life now, you know. I mean,
Right.
so it's so important to
Yeah.
see that, to have somebody who's walked that path before you and to be able to bear witness to it, and then just be in that flow too, to be in the presence of that calmness and that, you know, that light. It's really powerful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have so many modalities at your disposal, and one of them is that you're a doula.
I am a,
And
yes.
yes. And so I was wondering, do you use hypnotherapy in preparation for assisting with childbirth, or is it like a completely different skill set?
Oh no, it's all, I got into this totally by accident.
Oh, really?
Um, Even before I started my business, because with my hypnosis, when I was, you know, back in the late 70s, I knew how to relax my mind and body. So when I went, you know, when I got pregnant early on and was going to go into, you know, have my child, I was doing the breathing and I was doing the relaxation. My water broke at 2:30 and he was born at 4:51, my first child. And my doctor told me all those years ago, it's because you know how to relax your mind and body. I
Hmm.
remember him distinctly telling me that. I really didn't know. I mean, I knew I was breathing and I knew I was relaxing, but I did not understand the whole mind body thing.
Was
And
this pre-Lamaze? I don't know when Lamaze.
well, it was Lamaze. Lamaze was just getting started. This was back
Okay.
in 1977.
Okay.
My son was born in 78.
Me
And
too.
the Lamaze, the Lamaze class that I went to was all about breathing.
Okay.
It was all about breathing and relaxing your body. So it went along with the hypnosis that I had done. And so coming forward, I had my first baby that I helped with is 14 now, and it was a friend of mine, and her daughter was getting ready to have a baby and she was freaking out. And I'm like, oh, let me help her. Let me just go in and help her. I can help her relax. I did it, you know. And I had known this young girl that was pregnant. I had known her since she was a child. So I got to Community North Hospital, and it was like a party. I had never, because when I was pregnant, my husband couldn't even come into labor and delivery, right?
Right.
So this girl had all of her friends there and all this, and she's in labor, and I'm like, wow, this is really different.
Yeah.
And I had worked with her beforehand, working with hypnosis and things. And so finally the nurse came in. It was about 9 o'clock at night, and she said, look, you've been in labor long enough that if this baby doesn't come by morning, we're going to have to do a C-section. Well, my client freaked out. And so I said, okay, Kelly, I said, all right, everybody out, get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just my client and I relaxed, and we did hypnosis and relaxed her. And the baby was born 45 minutes later. So what I like to do with my clients is I like to meet with them once a week for the last 4 weeks of their pregnancy, because when I get people in here, this is where most of the work's done. And by the time we get to the hospital, it's pretty easy, because they already know about hypnosis. They already know we've already done some reflexology. We've done some oils, because I work with essential oils for relaxing. And they've already had hypnosis that they've been listening to for 4 weeks, preparing them and how comfortable they're going to be and how relaxed they're going to be. Now, with that, I will tell you that 95% of my clients that I have worked with do epidurals. So I'm not a doula that's all natural. I've had a few people that want to do it that way, and that's fine. I'm open to whatever. But even if you have an epidural, you may not feel that discomfort, but if you're not mentally relaxed, those muscles of the uterus are they're going to still.
Yeah.
So it works with both. They just have a lot of time to prepare. It's just, it's really great. I've helped with 3 babies during COVID.
Oh.
So, but 2 of them had to be on,
on Zoom or something.
And one was on through Zoom and one was on telephone. And the other one I was able to be there. So they're
it's
just
so it's amazing. It's such a beautiful offering. And my kids are 13 and 10, and I had a C-section the first time, because he was breech.
Yes.
So, and we tried to turn him and he wouldn't turn. And so they really didn't deem it safe to try to deliver him breech. Yeah. But with my daughter, she was not. And because it wasn't my body that had made us have the C-section with my son, they said, okay, assuming everything is all healthy and good, you can do a VBAC.
Yes.
And so it wasn't until like the closing weeks of my pregnancy, and she was 2 weeks early. So, that I even learned about hypnobirthing. And so I kind of went into it going like, oh, of course I'll have an epidural. Didn't even, this is before I was a meditator, wasn't really into, I really just didn't know a lot about like holistic health or anything. And I just was like, oh, okay, I'll have the VBAC, but I'll have an epidural. And then I was taking a prenatal yoga class, and somebody mentioned that they were doing hypnobirthing, and I'm like, oh, what's that? So I started reading a book about it, but I was already in my 3rd trimester, so it was too late to like take a class or anything. So I kind of went into the birth with I just was like, I'll go as long as I can without having an epidural, but I'm not going to go into it like, oh, I have to have a natural birth or I've done it wrong,
Right.
And I wasn't a meditator, so I didn't really have any techniques, like any relaxation techniques. I'd taken like a weekend birthing class or something, and they had a little bit of a focus on breath work. They'd given us some examples of breaths that you can do. But I found that I got to a point where I was like a certain amount dilated and the pain was coming. And it wasn't that the contraction was too much or too intense. It was my fear that because I wasn't fully dilated yet, how much worse is this going to get? And it just was like, there's going to have to be a point in time where I say, okay, I've had enough, because I have to have time for the anesthesiologist to get in and for the epidural to kick in. So if I don't make my choice at some point, then it might get too intense and then there's no going back. And I also, my water broke as I was getting into bed that night. So I had not been having contractions. So it came on suddenly. I was like, oh, wait, did my water just break? I think we're having the baby. And it was like, I thought I was going to bed,
Right.
And so I was up all night. And so by the time it really started getting intense, it was the wee hours of the morning and I was getting tired. And as the contractions were getting more intense, I was like, realized that they would come and I'd be like, no, I'm not ready. And then I'm worried I'm going to go backwards. Like you were talking about how like, okay, if this doesn't keep going, we're going to have to, and I was like, oh my God, I'm telling myself, I'm saying out loud, no.
Right.
what's that going to do to my process here? So,
Right. Yes.
but I would have loved to have been clued in to the possibilities of hypnosis or meditation or any kind of, you know, dealing with it, and with the ability to kind of use consciousness to
Mm-hmm.
relax deeper and to like understand that your thoughts are impacting your body. And, you know, you can kind of tell yourself to open your muscles more, open, you know, just relax and open and allow things to move. Because there was, looking back, it's like, gosh, the resistance that I
Uh-huh.
was putting up because I just
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah. And the key word was when you said the first thing was fear.
Mm,
That's when the discomfort starts.
yeah.
Oh, oh my gosh, I'm in labor. And it's a fearful thought.
Yeah.
And guess what? Within 3 seconds of a fearful thought, everything tenses up
Yeah.
and you get ready for fight or flight.
Yep.
Instead of just realizing that, birth is just about two muscles that are working in harmony. One's contracting while another one is loosening and opening.
Mm.
And it's this motion. And really what I like to tell my clients is, there's the inner lining, which brings blood and oxygen during labor and delivery. And then we have a horizontal muscle in the uterus, and then a vertical and a horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
And one comes up while the other one relaxes. And this is the action of a contraction. Now,
Mm.
when two muscles, one's contracting and one's relaxing, it's just like raising my arm. When I raise my arm, my upper, right here in my muscle area, has to contract to bring the arm up, but this muscle has to relax.
Mm-hmm.
And I can do this all day long as it's relaxed. But the minute that I bring tension in and I'm sitting here and I'm doing this, I'm going to get tired and these muscles are going to start hurting because they're tense and tight.
Such a good point.
So when people really understand that, most of it is because we've been told that birth is painful. We've heard horror stories. We've seen maybe horror stories about watching birth and people screaming and people, whatever. Well, what does that do to your brain? The minute you think, oh, I'm in labor. Oh my gosh, my water broke. Fear.
Yeah.
The first thought. And then everything tenses and tightens up.
Right.
And my belief is that is why we have such painful births.
I completely agree. I mean, I think you can take it even beyond childbirth, where we hit this point with pain, physical pain,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not even so much about the pain in the moment. It is the projection into the future about what might be coming.
Yes, yes.
And it's like we have this sort of inability to like, well, we want to prepare, it's like, okay, is this a signal about how it's going to get so much worse,
Right. Yeah.
uh,
I just did a certification a couple of years ago with a gentleman who was a nurse anesthetist in the Navy for many years. And when he first, back in the late 70s, about the time I started, he learned hypnosis, and he used hypnosis throughout his Navy career along with his anesthesia. And now he just works his whole hypnosis. He retired from the Navy as a captain in the Navy. And now he has a hypnosis practice where he just works with people from all over the world with pain. And they come to see him from all over the world. So he was doing a certification program that I took part in. And in that we learned there is no pain until it hits the brain. This is just a reflex. Wherever it is, it's just a reflex.
yeah, it's like a
And then it hits the
sensation.
brain. It's a
Yeah.
sensation that hits the brain. Yeah. And so the more that you feel it, and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And then you just start tensing and tightening up. And when my clients come in with pain, I work with them on that. I work with them to go to that pain. What do you see? Most of the time, if you could really take a little, camera inside of your body and you go to that pain, it's usually tense and tight muscles and, red and, all of that stuff. And then then I'll ask them to just relax that area. Just relax that area. And maybe go to their hand and work the area for the reflexes, sending some better nerve impulses and better circulation. Maybe putting some oils on their hands so that it gets into those reflexes. And within a few minutes, they're like, yeah, that feels better.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So it's really, really learning about how we all have that within us, that power,
right.
and learning about how the human body works. And it's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, I love that. I have noticed as well. I mean, and I don't suffer from chronic pain, so it's hard for me to relate, because I know that there are people who are living with pain
Absolutely
all the time. So that's I can't speak to that, but I know that, like every other person who is inhabiting a human body, I do experience pain sometimes. And in addition to that, projecting into the future and kind of like seeing the pain that we're having now and seeing it, like imagining that it's just going to automatically keep intensifying, which makes it worse in the moment. The other piece to it is what you're saying. What you said was, it's not, we just feel a different sensation that is not, it's not what it normally is. And then we ascribe the word pain to it. But if we actually go into it, or at least this has been my experience, if I actually, like, if I experience pain in my stomach and it's like, I could just go like, oh, my stomach hurts. And then kind of like my inclination typically is like, oh, ignore that, so that I don't put any more focus on it. But if I actually do the counterintuitive thing, which is, no, actually, I'm going to bring all of my awareness to it. I'm going to go right into the center of it and I'm going to look at it. It tends to break up and like dissolve. It's almost like it's going, hey, pay attention to your stomach for a second. And then I'll like go, okay, you've got all my attention right now. And then it's like, okay, I was just kidding.
Yeah, right. And we can play with that. One of the things that I'm certified in is called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And we go in and we look at the submodalities. So the submodality of pain would be, let's go in and let's look at, well, if you could go in there, what shape would that be? What color would that pain be? And then how could we, if we just took that shape, that's like, maybe you think, oh, I could see it as a red box, a red square, and red, very angry red, hot. What if I took that area and I visualized a beautiful blue, like the color of the ocean in the Caribbean, and I rounded that out to a beautiful circle, the shape of the sun, without those rough edges. You just see that square, you visualize that square just turning into that circle. And as that blue just sweeps in like a wave that would sweep in and sweep that red just right away. And then you can just see this beautiful blue feeling. And then you let that expand into your abdomen, into your chest, just that beautiful blue feeling of just relaxation. And so,
did you just hypnotize me? I'm like, I think I'm like in another dimension.
you feel a little more relaxed. You could visualize what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And so your subconscious mind didn't know that you weren't just at the ocean. It does not know truth from false. So whatever you think about, it takes in like, oh, okay, we must be there. Oh, okay, that must be turning into a circle.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't know truth from false. And it's 95% of who we are.
Yeah.
So when you can tell yourself, I'm calm and relaxed, even though consciously you may not feel like it, you keep saying that over and over and over, you're going to find that your body's going to react like you are calm and relaxed because your subconscious mind is giving that to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me. Can you put that on hold for just a second?
Yeah, sure.
And so, and so, so anyway, you can,
Use your
visualize,
thoughts and your words.
use your visualization,
Mm-hmm.
and really make a difference in your life.
Yeah, that's amazing. I really do think you hypnotized me a little bit there.
Well, you took the, you were taking those suggestions in and you were visualizing them. So
Yeah.
that is what hypnosis is you're taking in my suggestions,
Yeah.
and then your body is feeling it.
Yeah. That was beautiful. Thank
We
you.
go in and out of trance all day long.
True.
When we're driving somewhere and all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Our conscious,
Wormhole.
yeah, our conscious mind was someplace else, but because there is an area, a pathway in the brain that is associated with driving,
Mm-hmm.
because you've done it so long, your subconscious mind said, okay, conscious mind, you can go ahead and float us someplace else because I know how to drive the car.
Right.
When we're daydreaming or when we get into a really good book and we're right there in the story and we can visualize what they're talking about and we can feel what they're feeling and visualizing what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a state of hypnosis. We're in a trance. It's what's marketing's built on, hypnosis, really.
Yeah.
It's all built around suggestion, and that's what hypnosis is. That's how hypnosis is different than just meditation.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting your mind into a focused state of relaxation, and then myself or somebody as a hypnotist is giving you the suggestions, working with your subconscious mind to be able
Affect
to change those
change.
things that you want to change.
Right. Right.
You have to want to change that,
Right.
because I can't make anybody do what they don't want to do.
Right. Right. Well, we've talked about surgery and stress and anxiety and childbirth. Would you like to share any other kind of targeted areas that you work with your clients that we haven't gotten to?
Well, I think it's not really, I work with this all the time and we've talked about it a little bit, but the visualization.
Mm.
There is so much to visualizing. I'll tell you a story about a client that I had that came to me for surgery. She called me during the pandemic and said, hey, I had worked with her a couple years before on weight release.
Mm-hmm.
And she called me and she said, hey, I've developed this pituitary tumor and it's so large that there's 2 pieces of it that are hitting my optic nerves and I'm losing my sight.
Oh gosh.
And I've got to have surgery. So pituitary is right in the middle of your brain. So they have to go up through your nose to get to this pituitary. And they weren't sure that she was ever going to be able to see again. They weren't sure if they were even going to be able to get the majority of it. So she came in and we worked on visualizing that tumor shrinking. And we got rid of some emotions around the tumor. And so she listened to that recording for a couple weeks, and then she came back and we did the prepare for surgery, and she listened to that for 2 weeks. And by the time they got in there, the tumor had shrunk. It had stroked itself out and shrunk so much that they got 99% of it. And she woke up seeing.
Wow.
And so it is, it really is, visualization is so powerful. Because again, 95% of you doesn't know truth from false.
Right. That's
And
amazing.
so I would say, visualize what you want. Visualize your body being healed. Visualize, going in and just working
Yeah.
areas of your body that you want to be more comfortable or to change in some way.
That's beautiful. Thank you. So, how can people find out more about your work and connect with you?
Well, thank you. You can, my website is indianaintegrative.com, hypnosis.com,
Yeah,
dot
indianaintegrativehypnosis.com.
com. I'm on Facebook on Indiana Integrative Hypnosis. And on my website, if anybody's interested, you can, right on the first page, there's a place where you can put in your email. You're signing up for a newsletter, which I never send one out, by the way. But it'll email you one of my 20-minute hypnosis recordings. And if you can just listen to that once a day, it starts creating a new neural pathway in the brain to go so that your brain can start saying, oh yeah, we can be more relaxed and calm.
Do you have to see people physically in your office, or do you do virtual work?
I do virtual work, and to be honest with you, when I very first started, I was doing my work over the phone because we didn't have Skype or FaceTime or Zoom or any of that. I work with people all over the country, and in fact, now I just got a new client in the UK, so I'm starting to venture out, and yeah, it works very well over. I do Zoom or FaceTime.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. I've learned a ton, and I'm really excited about the work you do and the light that you're sharing. So thank you for everything that you're doing. So
Well, thank
beautiful.
you. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoy this. I love educating people about what I do.
Yeah, absolutely.